say, for the sake of argument, you run a modestly successful YouTube channel, and given the current political reality, you're thinking of doing some videos on the alt-right. Let's say you've been trying to understand the alt-right for some time, and would like to do a series that tackles the big questions. What are the rhetorical strategies the alt-right uses to legitimize itself and gain power? How do these strategies work? Why do they work? How do we keep from falling for them? And, importantly, how do we catch ourselves when we start using them too? You're thinking of calling this series the Alt-Right Playbook. Setting aside that any lefty who makes a YouTube series with alt-right in the title will see their life go to hell, there are 3 things you'd have to clarify from the get-go. First, what is the alt-right? For clarity's sake, you'd have to tell people that the alt-right is a pack of loosely aligned groups and individuals that have existed for quite a while at the peripheries of American conservatism, but have recently gained footholds in the Republican Party proper. The term alt-right implies more or less what you think it would, positioning themselves as the young, edgy nirvana to the antiquated motley crew of 70s and 80s conservatism. They seek to replace and critique the likes of Barry Goldwater and Ronald Reagan for being, let's not mince words here, not reactionary enough. The alt-right, the people who adopt the label and those who just parrot their talking points, has high overlap with white supremacist think tank the National Policy Institute, Stormfront and the Ku Klux Klan, Breitbart News and various sections of 4chan, 8chan, and Reddit, sections of the asshole atheist community, anti-feminist YouTube, pickup artists and rape apologists, the not all men, all lives matter and Gamergate crowds, and basically anyone who uses the terms social justice warrior or virtue signaling unironically. Not everyone in these groups is in the alt-right, but the alt-right traffics at the intersection between them. There's a wide range of differing and frankly incompatible ideas about government and the social order among these groups, but as it gains power, the alt-right is congealing into a somewhat cohesive ideology. And the reason they matter at this moment in history is that of all the people in the 2016 primaries, only one was the alt-right candidate. And while not everyone who voted for him is in the alt-right, they are his base, his most ardent supporters, and they carried him all the way to the White House. Next, you'd want to clarify why they're called the alt-right. Alt-right is a term coined by National Policy Institute president, avowed white nationalist, and professional speedbag Richard Spencer. The term is meant as a euphemism, a way of painting a happy face on racism. And that's not an opinion. One of the stated aims of Spencer's organization is the removal of non-whites from American society. And the purpose of rebranding white supremacy with a term like alt-right is so mainstream white people are not made to feel like racists when they vote for racist people with racist policies. So every time a journalist writes an article about the dapper fashions of the alt-right and doesn't title it Lipstick on a White Supremacist Pig, that journalist is being a coward and treating a hate group with kid gloves basically because the hate group asked them to. So, you might want to clarify why you put that euphemism in the title of your videos. And, well, you'd have to explain that while the alt-right is racist, they're not only racist. They're also misogynist, anti-feminist, Islamophobic, xenophobic, homophobic, transphobic, classist, ableist, authoritarian, and fiercely anti-intellectual. So if you just did a find and replace of each instance of alt-right with white supremacist, you'd actually be leaving a lot out. That's not much of a defense for the term alt-right, it just paints a happy face on a bunch of horrible stuff, but it is useful to have a term that refers to the whole cluster, and you don't have the kind of internet pull where if you coined your own term, anyone would know what you're talking about. So you'll just have to promise not to use alt-right as a euphemism. When the alt-right is racist, you will have to call them racist. When the alt-right is homophobic, you'll have to call them homophobic. If you're stuck with their term, don't use it the way they want you to. Third, you'd have to cover how to engage with the alt-right, which is actually pretty straightforward. Don't. The reasoning there may not be immediately obvious, especially if you, say, once devoted an entire video to the importance of talking to anti-feminist hate mobs. So you'll have to explain. You have since then learned how such debates with the far right often go, thanks to conversations with people who have more lived experience than you. If some guy on Twitter shoots his mouth off about how, for instance, only precious snowflakes would care about how many black women are getting roles in Hollywood, maybe you push back on that. Maybe the conversation gets heated. Maybe you debunk his arguments, make your points, and he walks away in a huff. For you, the interaction is over. But for folks on the far right, it often isn't. The far right keeps mental lists of people who represent the things they're mad about. The symbol of the liberal media, the symbol of video game feminism, the symbol of trans activism. FYI, these are usually women and people of color. And these people aren't people to them. They're just icons for a thing. And the way they express anger about those things is to attack those people. So while you leave the argument and have a lie down, eat a sandwich, feel better, he maybe vents his frustration by hacking the email of whomever represents black women in Hollywood this week. This doesn't happen every time, or even most times, but it happens reliably enough that anytime you try and debate with a reactionary, you are gambling with someone else's safety. The purpose of debating these people is not to change their minds, but to stem the flow of lies and bad rhetoric. The alt-right is always recruiting, always trying to expand its audience. And there are ways to reach their intended audience without engaging them directly. It's not only safer, it's often more effective to cut out the middleman, speak past them, not to them. If your purpose is to actually change the mind of a reactionary, well, doing that right is tricky, and doing it wrong can have serious consequences. So until you know for sure how to change the mind of a reactionary without fucking somebody else's life up, do not engage. Once you've got those 3 bits cleared up, the rest of your announcement is just housekeeping. Because there are a whole lot of topics to discuss, you'll want to keep the videos short and to the point, and you'll have to alternate them with videos in your more usual wheelhouse, or else after a few months of nothing but this, videos would just be 5-minute blocks of sustained screaming. You'll try to release them in batches when the subjects interlock, but you'll also try not to make any promises about your schedule. And you'll have to clarify that anything you say, no matter how insightful or well-researched, is ultimately your opinion, and invite people to expand or push back on your ideas, provided they can do so civilly. And you'll have to be clear that if people are coming to you for solutions, you do not as of now have any. You're not at solutions yet. Maybe you will be by the end of this, but for now, all you know is, if you want to win, you have to understand why you've been losing. And if you want to defeat an enemy, you have to know how your enemy thinks. Then, all that's left to say is, welcome to the alt-right playbook.